Hey everyone, today's 2024 election prediction is between Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee in 2024 versus Evan Mcmullin, a Republican. Now, this is really in the case if Evan never mind. So Evan Mcmullin will most likely run for the U.S. Senate from Utah, and I mean really he would run as an independent because we have a Republican incumbent and he's very unpopular. And the only way for a McMullin win would be if he had all of the anti-Trump support in the state of Utah, which there is a lot, plus the Democratic vote. So Evan Mcmullin, to be nominated for president, which is extremely unlikely as it is, he would kind of have to be elected to the senatorship of Utah. But anyway, you might not know who Evan Mcmullin is. Well, you might remember him from the 2016 election. Remember, Evan Mcmullin is a guy from Utah who ran for president in 2016 simply to win the state of Utah or split the Republican vote enough to give it to Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, it is a safe red state. But, if you go back to the 2016 Democratic primary, they voted for Ted Cruz by a wide margin. The Midwest did not like Donald Trump that much. Ted Cruz mostly won the Midwest, including the state of Utah. And when you go to the 2016 general election after Trump is nominated, who are conservative Republicans going to choose after Trump was nominated? Cruz isn't in the race. People like Huckabee aren't in the race. You're left with Trump or Clinton, and ultimately you choose Trump if you're a conservative Republican. But then Evan Mcmullin jumps in the race late. I believe it was August of 2016, about only 2 months before the general election. And Mcmullin tells all the anti-Trump Republicans in the state of Utah, because Trump made numerous anti-Mormon remarks, bashing the Mormonism, the religion of Mormonism, of course, which dominates the state of Utah. And that really brought in a lot of anti-Trump Republicans to his side. A lot of Republicans in Utah do not like Donald Trump, and a lot voted for Evan Mcmullin. One poll showed him tied with Trump and leading Clinton, but ultimately it was Trump who came out on top in Utah, and even Hillary Clinton came in second, and he came in third. So let's see how he would do if he ran as a Republican against Joe Biden, because he is a Republican, but an anti-Trump Republican. So that means that very pro-Trump Republicans all across the United States will not like to turn out for Evan Mcmullin. We have to remember that. He will not get that very strong Trumpian vote. However, a lot of Republicans will choose Mcmullin over Biden because of Biden's unpopularity. I think Biden will hang on to states like California and Washington solidly, Hawaii, Illinois, D.C., Maryland, his home state Delaware, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Vermont. I think that Mcmullin would do good enough to win states like Oregon, not to win, for Biden to win Oregon and New Jersey by a likely margin, but nowhere close to a win for him. I think that Maine's first would be likely, but going over to a state like Connecticut, I do think that this would be solid. Moving on to save Mcmullin states, his home state Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, who's going to be very popular in the Midwest. We have to remember that. That means states like Kansas and Oklahoma are solid. Louisiana, Arkansas, and Missouri are solid. Nebraska at large, Nebraska's first, Nebraska's third will all be solid. Mississippi and Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia will be solid. Going to Alaska, I think that this would stay a likely state for the Republican Party. Going to South Carolina, I think that this would be a state that would be pretty close to becoming lean. Down south, there are a lot of very Trumpian Republicans here, a lot of hardcore Trump fans who will not like to turn out for Mcmullin at all. So I do think that South Carolina would be likely, because it is a very much a Republican state. I think that Indiana would be likely. This is a state that only went to Trump by 16.5%, just over a solid margin. But if his running mate Mike Pence was not from that state, I do believe that it would be a likely margin. So against Evan Mcmullin, without this very Trumpian vote, I think that state of Indiana would be likely for Evan Mcmullin. And states like Iowa and Ohio just narrowly going to go to Evan Mcmullin. These are going to be very close races. But with inflation so high and a lot of parents turning against Biden, those who had voted for Biden in 2020, now turning against him, these states will be closer. But ultimately with that very anti-Trumpian vote, pro-Trumpian vote gone away from Evan Mcmullin. These will be very close races. But going to Nebraska's 2nd district, I do think that this would be Tilt McMullen because he has an appeal in the Midwest here. Plus, it is shifting Republican. But yeah. Anyway, going down to let's go to Maine at large. I think that this would be probably a likely Biden win here. I mean, he wins. Because I do not think that Evan Mcmullin will do very well in Maine 2nd. This is definitely an area with a lot of Trumpian votes. But saying how Republican it really is, I'm going to give it lean McMullen. I do think that this race would narrow up. I think that state of Georgia would definitely narrow up. I think it's going to go to Biden by a lean margin. Definitely a closer race than in 2020. What we have to remember is that in every state there are Trumpian votes that will be lost for Evan Mcmullin, and they just elected a Republican governor. So, this shows that this state does not like Joe Biden very much. But ultimately, the decision comes down to, does the state not like Biden, or does the state not like McMullen more? And the answer is that it is a Democratic state. So ultimately, Joe Biden will come out as the victor in the state of Virginia. But moving on to Texas, I do think that McMullen will win here just because he does have an appeal down here. I think that there are a lot of Trumpian Republicans down in the state of Texas, and that goes for Florida too. But ultimately, I think that McMullen will have an appeal on this in this Midwest. And no, Texas is not technically part of the Midwest, I don't think. But still, McMullen is definitely going to do better in the state of Texas than he will in a city state like New York, in Connecticut, in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts, and New Jersey. He's definitely going to do well in the rural regions. That's what we have to remember. That means the state of Texas. I think that this race would narrow up a bit, but I think that he's going to pull out a win here by a lean margin. Let's go to some Biden wins now. New Mexico and Colorado, I believe, would stay in the Biden column because of the Trumpian votes lost. I think that the state of Minnesota would narrow up because Evan Mcmullin did do surprisingly well here in 2016. He won, I believe, 1.6% of the vote, and I know that does not seem like much, but compared to other states, this was more than he won in a lot of other states. Remember, what we have to remember here is that Evan Mcmullin was only trying to win votes in Utah. But winning 1.6% of the vote in Minnesota is pretty good when you really think about it, even when he's trying to only win state votes in Utah, So I think that he would definitely make this race close, but ultimately I will give it to Joe Biden by a lean margin. Going up to the state of New Hampshire, I really think that Evan Mcmullin will be acceptable here. This is definitely a moderate state. They have a moderate Republican governor, Chris Sununu, and he's immensely popular. So I don't think that Evan Mcmullin being anti-Trump will hurt him as much here, but it is a Democratic state, and of course in every state there will be those Trumpian votes lost. I think that New Hampshire will go to Biden by a lean margin. Let's go down to Nevada and Arizona. I think that Nevada will go probably lean Biden. I think that there will be a lot of votes lost here from the Republican Party. But in Arizona, I think that, and I'm going to change Nevada to tilt, but I definitely think that Evan Mcmullin will do very well in the states of Nevada and Arizona and New Mexico and Colorado and Nebraska 2nd. This whole Midwestern region he will do very well in. And Arizona is such a tilt state, such a swing state, such a purple state. I think that there are enough moderate voters to vote in Evan Mcmullin. Remember, this is a state that has Kyrsten Sinema, such a moderate, the most moderate, arguably either her or Joe Manchin, the most moderate Democrats, definitely Democrats, possibly the most moderate senators, most moderate Democrats in the Senate. And this is a moderate state. They have a Republican governor, but they have 2 Democratic senators, and the House seats, they're split. This is a purple state, and I think that Evan Mcmullin, I don't think him, being against Trump will hurt him as much as it would in other states. But what we have to remember here is that a lot of Democrats will stay home, especially in this region. I think that Mcmullin really will carry the state of Arizona somehow. But going up north to the Rust Belt, this is an area where there were so many protests about election fraud, about how the Trump supporters believe that there was election fraud in this area, and how Trump believed that he would, that he did carry the blue wall. So I do think that Biden will come out on top in many of these states. I think in Michigan he's going to win by a lean margin. I think in Pennsylvania he's going to win by a lean margin. I think that in the state of Wisconsin he's going to win by a total margin. I definitely think that Biden will be able to take back the blue wall. Of course, there's going to be these Republicans who will hate McMullin about how McMullin ran just to stop Trump in 2016. And, of course, McMullin denounced election fraud ideas and all that. All right, he is an anti-Trump Republican, and the white working class, those who hung Trump flags in their front yards, will hate McMullin, and they will write in Trump's name, or they will vote third party or not vote at all. They will not vote for Evan Mcmullin that way, and that is why he will never be nominated. But going down to Georgia, I mean, a very much a state that what do you call it? Very a purple state. I mean, it's a swing state. All right, Georgia went to Biden by less than a percentage point in 2020. This is a very close state here, and I think that he will increase his lead, his win here against Evan Mcmullin, because there always will be those anti-Trump Republicans. And I think that going down to the state of Florida, I think that Biden will be able to win it by a total margin. I mean, and North Carolina is going to win by a lean margin. There are so many Republicans down here who will hate McMullin, and there will be that solid Democratic base. So Joe Biden does win with 336 electoral votes to Evan McMullin's 202. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Check the description, all that. Go on my channel, but just please subscribe. I mean, subscriptions have been really, really slow lately, and I mean, if you have a channel, like promote me or something, please. I'm desperate for subscriptions, and yeah. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.